Welcome to Dungeon Academics. My name is Thomas and I will be your instructor. And we are continuing our series of zero production value videos because I'm still recording on an iPhone and don't have access to any computer to edit on. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, yesterday I had a couple of very good friends over. Hi Max, hi Steffi, and we played a board game. We were hoping to try and play 2 or 3. In the end, we just played one big one and it lasted the entire session that we were there. And we played a game called Pest. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about Pest because I think it can teach us a few things about game design and good game mechanics. But before I get into that, one of the two guys I had over, Max, is a very small streamer on Twitch, and I have challenged him to get to 50 subs before I can get to 50 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So I'm at 30 something at the moment, and he, I think, is just shy of 30 followers on Twitch. His name is Son of Hanno. I'll put a link in the description. And he plays Factorio. He's a fascinating guy. He's great to chat with. He's been a good friend of mine for pretty much the whole time I've lived in Finland. So he's a really important part of my life. And if you can go show him some support as well, I would appreciate that personally. Okay, what is Pest? I have to check the exact name here. It is by Arcona Games. And Pest is set in the medieval period. You play as plague doctors trying to cure the land after some infectious outbreak and rebuild the kingdom. And it's quite a relatively heavyweight Euro game. So there's lots of different things to keep track of. There's lots of mechanical complexity. There's a great dark theme. The production value is beautiful. I think it's a great game. I think there are a few things they could certainly do to make it an even better game. And after we played, my friends and I just sort of gave some feedback on what we could change in the game really easily to improve the feeling of the game. For us, the big thing was, although it had a very strong narrative element, it had quite an abrupt end. The game ends after the 6th round, basically, and it mechanically just cuts off. The game ends and then you see who's won. And there isn't a collective target that you are aiming for. So although there is a very strong narrative theme in the game, that ends immediately when the game is over and you just count the points. So we've come up with an idea on how you could tie the progress that you're doing into a semi-cooperative ending for the game, whether you've done enough to save the kingdom or not. And if you haven't done enough to save the kingdom, then irrespective of people's individual scores, everyone loses. And if you've done really well, then irrespective of everyone's scores, everyone wins, but perhaps one person wins more than others. But other than that, I quite like the game. The core gameplay loop is really, really nice. And I've actually got a player aid from the game to show you. This is one of your player boards. I should point out that Pest has an enormous table footprint. You need a huge table area to be able to play. And this is one of the things I think they could probably improve on because it takes up so much space. Everyone has a player board this big, and there are cards that get placed here as well, so it's extended further. There's the main map, and then there are 2 further boards where various things are tracked. So this takes up a vast amount of table space, and unless you happen to have an enormous dining room table, you're going to run out of space for this game. We've got a 6-seat dining room table in my home, and it barely fits on that. So we were actually using the club room in our basement, and I think there's a 12-person table there, and it took up a good portion of that. But anyway, Pest is a great game. It's a mixture of engine building and worker placement. This part is your engine building. These represents various buildings that you can build on the map, and they give various bonuses. And this is your worker placement part. Now, what I really like about this is there's two axes, the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. The horizontal axis tells you what your plague doctor, your player piece, is doing on the map, whether he's collecting resources from all the buildings you've built, whether he's moving to another location and collecting the infected as he goes to put them in quarantine, or is he producing buildings? Okay, and then your assistants here, the position you put this in also tells you what your assistants are doing. Are they researching new technologies? Are they assigning workers from your healed person track into your buildings? Or are they working to cure the people that you have in quarantine? And you put one of your assistants in one of these grid spaces, and the vertical axis tells you what your plague doctor is doing, and your horizontal axis tells you what the assistant is going to do. And what's nice is that you can't put assistants in the same spot. So in the first 2 turns, you have 2 assistants. In the next 2 turns, you have 3 assistants. And in the last 2 turns, you have 4 assistants. So working out which spaces you're going to use is really important. You might want to gather resources twice, which you can do, but you can't gather resources and heal the infected twice, or you can't gather resources and research twice. And working out how to put your assistants so you can get the primary actions and the secondary actions you want is a really fun bit of game mechanics. It's like a mini game within the game. And I like this. I like this a lot. This idea of a little meta game on how you plan your actions. So is something like this applicable to other roleplay games? Possibly. How can you plan your attacks with secondary actions? So different attacks, different secondary actions, or primary actions in your turn could be movement, fighting, magic, and secondary actions could be interacting with the environment, communicating with other players, or utilizing a skill. So having this little mini game about how to take your turn, I think that's fun. And I like thinking about how innovative game mechanics could feel in other games or roleplay games. So, Pest, I like it. It occupies a very difficult spot though, because there are a couple of sort of medium to heavyweight Euro games that my group really likes. We've got Tricarion, which is absolutely one of my all-time favourite games. And we've got Terraforming Mars, which we all love as well. And so whenever we're thinking, do we want to play a complicated thematic Euro game, Terraforming Mars and Tricarion are almost always our first choices. But I think having this extra game as a sort of third choice livens things up. I don't think it's going to be the first game that we want to play, but maybe once in a while we'll dust it out. We'll try these sort of rule modifications that we thought of to add a slightly more thematic finish to the game and see how it works out. So that's something that I like to do. I like to look at game mechanics from other games, and I think I'm going to do a couple more videos on different games and tell you about mechanics that I like. So stick around for more videos if you like that, and please do check out my friend Max on Twitch at Son of Handel. Again, link is in the description for the video, and enjoy your next game, whatever it might be.